this question, but I would like to make 2 or 3 observations of my own. First of all, I think that this refugee problem in the Middle East and everywhere else, but particularly recently in the Middle East, needs to be seen and explained in the context of oil-related geopolitics. If we, in my opinion, if we miss that point, then the refugee problem cannot be explained properly. There are so many aspects, and many aspects, or some of the aspects, have been brought out by our speaker. And I think that in the last 1 or 2 decades, the oil problem and geopolitics around the oil problem has exacerbated to a great extent. One of the reasons being the rise in oil prices, particularly after 1973, oil shock. And the United States has found it necessary to intervene in the Middle East and to make them fight each other. While you are right to point out Althusser's ideological state and so on, it has to be noted that the so-called clash of civilizations propagated by the United States and its theorists is the direct result of the oil crisis in the Middle East, because the United States wants to show that the civilization there is inferior to the Western civilization. And that is why they made Iran and Iraq fight each other in a massively destructive war way back in 90s. And since then they have been trying to force wars on the countries of Middle East. And virtually oil can be found just below the soil in some of these countries. And the WMD, weapons of mass destruction, which the United Nations had constituted a commission to go into existence or non-existence of the WMD. The US refused to wait for its findings, and it intervened, knowing fully well that they are not there. And what the British Prime Minister and the United States President, retiring President, they said, they admitted, they had known it earlier, they admitted that it was a mistake. So they have put it in the category of a mistake. And they said that there were no WMDs in Iraq or any of these countries. This typical imperialism, bordering on fascistic methods. When Hitler invaded Poland, the ground was flimsy, the pretext was flimsy. Just on the flimsy grounds they invaded. The United States has destroyed the whole civilization and culture of Iraq, the old ancient civilization. It has given much to the world. And that was because West Asia and all these Arab countries, they emerged as competitors in the field of oil. See the development of the Gulf area, Saudi Arabia, Qatar and other Kuwait and so on and so forth. divide and rule. That is the typical imperialist method. And they have made fight each other on the basis of tribal history, subdivisions in religion. Everywhere you will find Sudan, you will find North Africa, you will find. We have come to know the names of so many tribes and so on, and subcultures and sub-religions and etc. etc. So this ideological offensive is part and parcel and the result of the imperialist economic offensive of the giant multinational corporations. Jeremy Rifkin has very well analyzed the emergence of oil monopolies. You must read. Jeremy Rifkin, there are two books, Third Industrial Revolution and Marginal Cost Society. He has wonderfully analyzed the emergence of oil monopolies. How do they monopolize production, refining, processing and market mechanism? We have to learn from that. So I think the anti-imperialist movement needs to be strengthened. An anti-imperialist movement has to understand this in order to fight. An anti-imperialist movement has to take care not to fall into the trap of religious, tribal, local, this and that conflicts. They should be put in proper perspective. Yemen was a great country. North and South Yemen were great countries. They were Syria and Iraq. They did so much in the field of social security and reforms. There are a lot of controversial aspects to the political systems in these countries. That is true, but at the same time, in the field of social security, they did a lot of wonderful things. So the United States imperialism in particular has a well laid out policy to destroy bit by bit the progressive contributions of these countries. It wants to weaken them and destroy them by making one fight the other. Of course, after Iran debacle, many of the plans of United States have failed, and also in Syria it has failed to a great extent. ISIS has been defeated largely thanks to the emergence, also one of the reasons of the emergence of Russia. It has been a relief to that extent. And I think these points should be taken up. That fight against terrorism is being carried on by the people of Middle East also, who are Muslims themselves. It is being accused, the Muslims are being accused of advocating or furthering or helping terrorism, but the whole Muslim world is fighting terrorism. And terrorism is the product of oil imperialism emanating mainly from the United States. It is a logical result of that. And it has hit back. It has gone out of the control of the boundaries set by imperialist needs. Taliban also and other terrorist groupings, many of the terrorist groupings. So this complicated mechanism of imperialist aided terrorism has to be brought out, has to be seen. And I think this is a very strange situation, refugee problem. You create refugee problem. You throw out people of Libya, Syria, and Middle East, countries of Middle East, They are refugees in their own countries. They are refugees in their own countries thanks to the Western imperialism, in particular the US. And now they are forced to travel thousands of kilometers to those very countries, to the Western countries, to Germany and to France and England, and they, depending on the nature of the political nature of the governments in those countries, they are given asylum or rehabilitation. If there are progressive regimes like that in Germany or Nordic countries, they are given more facilities. So, see the condition of these Syrian refugees. It is something that needs to be, it needs a lot of work. It needs a lot of socio-economic, political and ideological work. It's a very interesting as well as a very tragic situation. And really the progressive movement all over the world should take it up on a very big scale. I feel it has not taken up. The anti-imperialist edge of this problem, this movement is not as sharp as it should be. So, the right-wing orientation in many of the countries is one of the reasons is this refugee problem. A crisis in Germany itself has been created. Fortunately, Merkel government has been able to knock together a coalition with the Social Democrats. But then that leaves only the far-right party in the opposition, which is likely to win over the dissatisfied sections of the working class and other sections of Germany and other places. This is happening in many of the countries. This is a very strange phenomenon. The working class, the industrial working class, is shifting towards far right and right wing from United States to Germany in the whole range of countries. And this is a very serious problem. Serious political, ideological, economic problem, and this leads us to a point where the nature of imperialism, contemporary imperialism, and its new methods have to be analyzed. They need to be analyzed in order to understand this new kind of contradictions that they are trying to create. Of course, they are now failing in most of their endeavors. Many of these things have been understood by the people of Middle East, North Africa, and elsewhere. But still, the mass movement that should have been there in our country and elsewhere needs still to be created. And that is because of the lack of understanding of the refugee problem and the socio-economic and particularly economic roots of this problem have to be. And lastly, I will say that migration, internal migration and refugee problems are two different things, in my opinion. I am just giving my opinion. Yet there are certain common things. Vested interests in our country tend to treat migration as migratory people as refugee people, as refugees. And using that position, they tend to exploit them further. But I think this international migration has to be, it is a new serious problem, particularly in the context of the technological revolution. Technological revolution has opened up possibilities of people's migration, people going from one place to another. And the right-wing imperialism is using this technological revolution, information revolution, to transform this possibility of shifting populations into refugee problem to its own advantage. And therefore, I think the only solution is takeover of oil by the Middle East countries and regimes, bring about democratic changes, go deeper into the economic nature and political nature of the contemporary imperialism, driven by finance capital. It is finance capital which is trying to drive oil industry and transform this by using the potentials of new and renewable